Hey guys, Gaming Off the Grid here. If you didn't know already, it is 2020. It's time for a new decade. In today's episode, we're going to look into our crystal ball and forecast what we think is going to happen in the gaming industry in the next 10 years. What are we drinking today?
Today we're drinking double dry hopped Kingsu by Toppling Goliath. It's a double IPA.
All right, you know the drill. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring that bell icon so you never miss an upload. And sit back, relax, pour yourself a beer if you care to, and let's predict what's going to happen in the next decade.
Nerd. Keep gaming, keep drinking, and keep gaming off the grid.
All right, here we go. We find ourselves at the beginning of a new decade, and we were just kind of talking back and forth, like, what do you think's going to happen in the gaming industry here in the next 10 years? And we're like, you know what? Let's get the cameras rolling, because this is a fun topic.
It's a really fun topic to talk about, and 10 years is a long freaking time. Because I'm like thinking about in 1 year, like this might happen, but 10 years?
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen. So I just want to jump in and start talking about Sony. I have a feeling Sony and PlayStation are still going to be dominating the gaming industry.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Sony will continue to be that top dog in the race. I think Xbox is going to continue to improve, but there's a lot of reasons that I feel this way about Sony. So first off, they've got stronger IPs,
yes.
I feel like. They're internal games that are Sony exclusives. Although there's some weird stuff going on. Them allowing MLB The Show to be on other consoles and things like that, which we'll get to that in a second, because there's another point I want to make about Sony. But I think they've got more exclusive content or games that I think is superior to Xbox.
Yeah.
Speaking of Xbox, they continue to struggle to get a stronghold on the Asian markets. And
yes.
I think that really hurts them.
Oh, it does a lot.
Overall, from a sales perspective and things like that. And then in this last year and a half, you've seen a typically rigid company in Sony as far as they're keeping their stuff to themselves. They've shown an odd amount of agility since they got their new president or whatever it was.
Which is good to see, because like if something pops up or like a trend or something, they're not afraid to, change their course.
And I think maybe it hurt them a little bit there at the beginning. So we've seen them now allow crossplay. Which could be a huge thing for them going forward. And then speaking of, the point that I brought up with MLB The Show, agile enough to take one of your heavy hitters, your best sports game, the best baseball game on the market, and say, you know what, maybe it's best for the brand to put it on other consoles.
Which is awesome. As a gamer, I love that. I mean, I'm a Sony kid, I'm a PlayStation kid. It's awesome that they're doing that.
It is, and for those reasons, I think Sony will continue its dominance, and we're probably going to see 2 generations of Sony in the next decade.
Definitely.
There's a good chance.
One thing that I do want to bring up too about Sony is their controller.
Good point.
Their controllers have been continuous. They've been the same since they started.
They slightly evolve.
They slightly evolve, and they get better.
Yep.
They just feel like the PlayStation 4 controller feels amazing. It's such a good controller. If they just continue that trajectory, it's going to be insane.
That's a great point. The way they run it, it makes it very hard to leave.
Yes.
Once you're in,
in.
You know the controller for the next. It just makes it very hard to jump ship over to the other console. Nintendo, I think they are in a very unique position. They always, at least for the last few generations, have seemed to be in that odd spot of like, what generation do they belong in?
Yeah, because they always release it like in weird,
So I think they're gonna hang on to those udders and squeeze them tight. I think they're gonna milk the Switch.
I mean, they already have been milking the Switch hard. Switch Lite. There's rumors of the Switch Pro.
Which I think we'll get.
What the heck is going on, Nintendo?
I think it's gonna continue to do very well, because I think it speaks to and it is a different consumer. Not everybody's like as hardcore as us and wants to own every game, right? But I think for us, like, we love our Switch, but it's a different thing, like it has different types of games that we like to play, maybe more on the go. I'll admit, when I'm gaming, not on the channel, and when we're not together, I play my PS4 quite a bit.
Oh, that's my go-to system too. That's the one that it's just, there's so many options, there's so many,
but it's weird though. It's weird how, it's like that when we're on our own. But when we get together, we very seldom play the PS4 together. When we go on the road, we never take it with us.
No.
It just depends on the scenario you're setting, right? But I think Nintendo will continue to do very well. I do think, though, that they will have to put out another console in the next decade for sure. There's no way they can ride the Switch.
There's no way they can't put out, and I hope they do something weird and unique and put out something that's just like, how'd you come up with that? Because that's what we know from Nintendo. And speaking of Nintendo, in this decade, I think the Wii U is going to become the next Sega Saturn.
We've mentioned that before.
I know, but like in the next decade, like especially at the back end of the decade, it's going to be this like thing that's hard to find, super expensive, just an awesome thing.
So yeah, let's talk about some collecting trends like that. I like that. So back into the decade, we think the Wii U is going to mimic kind of how the Saturn is now. We mentioned that, I think, in our collaboration with Corlick and with Riff, how we think that's going to happen. I think now's the time to buy the Wii U. We've said it before, maybe not on our channel as much, but we've said it in various areas. I think now is the time if you think you're ever going to want the Wii U, which is an amazing console.
And the library is small. You can get most of the games.
Yeah.
It's like 130, 140 games.
You got to get it. I have concerns, and I think part of the reason the price is going to rise is, A, it's a Nintendo product, right? So there's that. I also think it's going to get harder and harder when people toss these into boxes and everything. I don't think that tablet, although it's built very well, I worry how many of those are going to be in pristine condition 10 years from now, right? It's not just a normal controller. So I think now's the time to strike the iron while you can on that. Other collecting trends, I really think so we've talked about how we think the Wii, PS3, and Xbox 360 is the time.
Now you can find them for dirt cheap, but in this next decade, I feel like that console generation, the prices are going to start to rise because the nostalgia.
Those kids are going to be 10 years older. They're going to have disposable income. They're going to be looking in the rearview mirror of their life, and they're going to get the nostalgia bug is going to pop.
And speaking of prices going up and prices going down, I think the NES, for sure, the prices will drop. They won't.
We've already kind of seen it.
Yeah.
Yep.
They won't go to like dollars or pennies, but it's going to drop from what it is, which is kind of nice because, that generation's getting older. So, like, there's a couple games that if we just wait 10 years, we might be able to get and finally add to the collection.
And I think the price, to your point, it won't ever bottom out on any of those because there's always the aspect of scarcity. Like, there's just not as much out there, just through attrition, right? So I think there is that aspect. Another thing, while we're on this, like, Game Hunter, retro gamers, and if you're a collector, things like that, I think get your CRT TVs.
Yes, we cannot talk about this enough. We love our CRT TVs. And a lot of people are like, no, you can upscale, you can do all this crap, you can spend thousands of dollars and be able to play your NES on an HD TV. Great if you want to spend that kind of money, but CRTs, they're awesome. They're the best way to play retro games. You can get them for free.
Yeah.
They're in great shape still, some of them, and they're going to disappear.
We have a full episode coming out here shortly, just speaking more on the CRT topic and how it's the superior way to play retro games, in our humble opinion. But I think as far as finding them, I do think we'll look back, and now we have 3 or 4 in the garage because we do LAN parties and stuff still, and we do events where we need to take them to play retro games that we've got for free. I don't think we're going to be going to garage sales and yard sales, at the end of this next decade and finding them like we were.
No, we're not going to be able to find them, and if we do find them, they're not going to be in great shape. They're going to be destroyed because people are literally right now throwing them away.
Yeah.
And I know junkyards and stuff like that won't take them. So they're just like destroying them, and it's like it's going to become a hot commodity if you don't have one. Now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about subscription-based services. We've mentioned this before on the channel, but in the next 10 years, I think this is going to become the new normal. I think game developers are going to start launching subscription services just like the television series is. Like CBS, NBC, Netflix, Hulu, all this stuff is going service.
Yeah, Disney, Showtime,
it's
HBO.
Out of control. I think that's going to come into the gaming industry, and it's going to be thriving, and it's going to suck. You're going to be spending so much money for games you don't own.
I totally agree with you, but I do think physical media is going to hang on for this next decade. I think long term it may be in peril. You still see your rural communities and also like lower income folks in that demographic that maybe can't afford internet.
Yes.
That maybe, and they've got disposable income as well that they spend on entertainment. I just don't think that we can fully go into an internet-based world.
Can't.
And this is coming from a couple guys that live in freaking Iowa. So we're fortunate. The big city we live in, big enough, Des Moines, we have fiber optics everywhere. You can get internet relatively cheap. Great internet.
Yeah.
But we're literally 20, 30, 40-minute drives of going into a area of the world that is very, very much archaic, right? It's a lot of farmland, things like that, a lot of folks still have landlines that they can't get. They can get satellite internet or dial-up, right? But they don't necessarily have access to high speed unless it's through their phones and things like that.
And speaking of not having internet, I think single-player or offline experiences are still going to be a thing, especially like Sony, their IPs, their single-player games, Last of Us, Spider-Man, etc., etc. That's still going to be a huge thing,
for sure.
I feel like, because those experiences, those games are incredible.
Yeah, I think big developers are starting to see this because, like EA with Jedi Fallen Order, right? That game's doing very well.
Incredible.
And I would have not wanted to go and put my money towards an EA Star Wars based game after the microtransaction incident. But I think they're going to see, like, just if nothing else, for fan lip service and the badge of honor they're going to get for releasing that game as they did, I think companies will still continue to go there. Plus, we're seeing a rise of remakes. We've talked about that before, but there's not really much of a way to take an old game that had no online piece, remake it, and give it an online piece. You're going to still have those single player experiences.
Well, I mean, they're kind of starting to do it like with the Res 3 remake. They're adding an online aspect to it, but the main story, their main game is single player offline. And what's crazy, we're a co-op channel. We love single player offline games because we can take turns, we can work it on together, and it's sweet. Now, one thing that is also a single player thing that is starting to take over, but I don't think it ever will, that is VR. VR, like, was the new hot thing, and people love it, but I think it won't take over. It's fun, I've done it, but after a couple hours, I'm like, okay, can I just sit down now and play with a controller? Like,
I think it'll continue to be an accessory. I think it'll maybe become more of a worthwhile accessory. I think it may become more prevalent. But I don't think we're going to reach that point where VR is the main form of gaming. I just don't think we're going to get there in this next decade. Somewhere down the line, maybe.
I just don't think it ever will take off unless technology just gets out of control, which, you know, it might. We don't know, because based on the last 10 years, technology has advanced so much. So it could, but I doubt it. I think it's just going to be an accessory. It's just going to hang out.
It has advanced a lot, but, like, the more you look at it, the more it's the same, right?
That's true.
You look back, 10, 20 years, it was PlayStation, Nintendo, it was Sony, or Xbox, right? Yeah. And it's just like now we just have flat screen TVs, but a lot of the games that were successful, you still got your Grand Theft Autos, you still got your Marios, it's just, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I don't know. I don't think we got to get too all hyped up about, gaming being ruined in this next decade. I think
I think video games are going to be thriving this next decade for any type of gamer, modern, old school gamer. This next decade, I'm so excited to see where this goes. And speaking of being excited, let's talk about this beer because holy crap, it's awesome.
So one of your favorite beers of all time is the Toppling Goliath Pseudo Sue. So it's your favorite brewery for sure.
Yeah, Toppling Goliath, hands down.
The Pseudo Sue, and then we had the pleasure of getting the King Sue, which isn't the easiest to get last year. It was Beer of the Year, right?
It was my Beer of the Year for 2018.
Yeah. So this is their double dry hopped King Sue, also very hard to find.
Yes. And wow.
How's it stack up, man?
So I recently had King Sue. I was at a work party and had it, and this is much superior to that. This is so smooth. It's so creamy. It's so, like, orangey. Like, look how thick that is. Like, this is such a good beer, and it's a double IPA. If you're not a fan of IPAs, you might enjoy this. Yeah. This is incredible.
This is the best pale ale I have ever had. It's got a thick mouthfeel. It's a very juicy beer. It smells way hoppier than it tastes.
The aroma is way hoppy. You're like, wow, that's insane hoppy. And then when you taste it, you're like, whoa, it's not that hoppy.
I'm pretty certain Captain Algebra would like this beer.
And he hates
And I think Telesplash Gaming would like this beer. Guys that are typically not IPA dudes, right? Yeah. This is world class, I feel like, in this category.
Oh, it's incredible.
I'm not an IPA expert, but I know that I'm tasting something that is the best form of an IPA I've ever tasted.
Well, Toppling Goliath, they know what they're freaking doing, especially when it comes to IPAs. Yeah. Pseudo Sue is my favorite IPA. Like, damn. It's just, this takes King Sue, which is one of the best beers I've ever had, and takes it up another notch. Yeah. Like, how do you keep making better beers? I don't get it, but I'm not complaining. Yeah. So keep making them, Toppling Goliath. I love you.
It's so weird, like the hop characters, like you can kind of taste them, but they just don't punch you. They just don't. They're so smooth. So smooth. Like feathers over your tongue. It's really good.
This is an incredible beer.
So, what do you think is going to happen in the next decade in the video game industry? We just are kind of shooting from the hip. Things that we think we will see come to fruition. It's a really fun topic to talk about from a collecting standpoint, from just a fan of video games standpoint. It's gonna be a wild ride.
I'm excited for the next 10 years, but I'm also not excited to be 30.
Well, I am already in that boat. Actually, I will be into the 40s. And
scary.
Do you think we'll still be doing this in 10 years? That's a long ways.
I mean, let me tell you right now, I'm not going anywhere.
Right? I just, like, it just hit me. I've never thought of that, but like, will we be here the next decade? Will YouTube be here the next? I think we're going to be just fine.
I think we'll be fine.
We'll be somewhere.
Yeah, we'll be drinking beer and playing video games
All right.
somewhere.
Cheers to that, and cheers to the next decade. We always appreciate you tuning in and subscribing to the channel. Keep gaming, keep drinking. We'll see you next time right here on Gaming Off the Grid.
Those are my favorite types.
Those are my favorite types of font.
I love font.
And we were just talking about the things we think are going to happen in the gaming industry in the next decade. Weren't you?
Huh?
Hey guys, Gaming Off the Grid here. If you didn't know already, it's 2020. Welcome to a new decade, Dick.
Welcome to the new decade, Dick.
Yeah. Fucking Dick. Hey guys, Gaming Off the Grid here. If you... Hey guys.
What? I was feeling it, dude. That's okay.
I don't know what. I don't even know what's funny. I still, all these years of my life, I'm 33 years old, and I don't know what's funny.
What's funny, dude? What's funny? What's funny? What's funny?
Okay.